Feeling lost in life is not a weakness. It is not a failure. It is not a sign that something is wrong with you. In fact, it may be one of the most honest signals your mind can send you. It is the moment when the noise fades and the question finally appears. What am I actually doing with my time, my energy, my life? Most people never slow down enough to ask that question. They stay busy, distracted, moving from task to task, paycheck to paycheck, approval to approval. So if you feel lost, you are not behind. You are awake. We are taught very early that work is something to survive, something you tolerate so you can live later. Study hard so you can get a job. Get a job so you can pay bills. Pay bills so you can rest on weekends. Rest on weekends so you can go back to work. Somewhere along the way, work became a prison sentence instead of a place where human potential is expressed. And when you realize this cycle does not feel right, the world tells you something is wrong with you, not with the system. But here is the truth that changes everything. Work is not the enemy. Meaningless work is work that disconnects you from growth, contribution, and self-respect is what drains the soul. Work itself is one of the most powerful tools humans have to shape identity, confidence, and purpose. The problem is that we were never taught how to see work correctly. Work is not just what you do to earn money. Work is how you turn time into value. It is how effort becomes skill. It is how struggle becomes strength. Every meaningful thing humans have ever built came from focused work, not from motivation, not from passion alone, from showing up, learning, failing, and trying again. When you feel lost, it is often because your work no longer feels connected to who you are becoming. You may be busy, but you are not building. You may be productive, but you are not progressing. And deep down, your mind knows the difference. That discomfort is not your enemy. It is your internal compass recalibrating. Most people wait for clarity before they act. They say, once I know my purpose, then I will work hard. Once I find my passion, then everything will make sense. But clarity does not come before work. It comes from work. Purpose is not discovered in isolation. It is revealed through effort. You do not think your way into a meaningful life. You work your way into it. Think about this. Confidence is not something you are born with. It is built through repeated evidence that you can do hard things. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a skill developed by keeping promises to yourself. Direction is not a gift. It is the result of movement. Standing still feels safe, but it is the fastest way to feel lost. Work gives structure to chaos. When life feels overwhelming, work gives you something solid to hold on to. One task, one responsibility, one small improvement today. You do not need to know where your entire life is going. You need to know what you are doing next and why you are doing it with care. There is a lie that says, if you love what you do, it will never feel like work. That lie has caused more confusion than almost anything else. Even meaningful work is hard. Even purposeful paths involve boredom, frustration, and doubt. The difference is not in how it feels every day. The difference is in whether the effort is shaping you into someone you respect. When you work only for approval, you become anxious. When you work only for money, you become empty. When you work only for comfort, you become stagnant. But when you work to grow, to learn, to contribute, something shifts. Work stops being a drain and starts becoming a source of strength. You are not supposed to have everything figured out at the beginning. Life is not a straight line. It is a process of becoming. Work is the engine of that process. Every skill you build expands your options. Every challenge you face increases your resilience. Every mistake you survive proves you are more capable than you thought. Being lost often means you have outgrown an old version of yourself. The work that once fit no longer does. The goals that once excited you no longer inspire you. That is not a crisis. That is growth. But growth requires new effort, new learning, and new forms of work. If you cling to what is familiar just to avoid discomfort, you stay stuck. You do not need to find the perfect job. You need to find work that teaches you something valuable. Skills compound, character compounds, habits compound. The right work today does not have to be the final destination. It has to be a step that moves you forward. Work teaches you how to trust yourself. When you commit to something and follow through, you build internal stability. When you improve even slightly each day, you create momentum. Momentum changes how you see yourself, and how you see yourself changes everything. If you feel behind, remember this: there is no universal timeline. The only real danger is drifting without intention. You can be young and lost, or older and lost. What matters is whether you decide to engage with your life instead of escaping from it. Work done with intention is engagement. Stop asking, what job will make me happy forever? Start asking, what kind of person do I want to become? And what work would help build that person? Happiness is a byproduct of progress, not a prerequisite for effort. You do not need motivation to start. You need structure. Show up at the same time. Do the work even when it feels ordinary. Especially when it feels ordinary. That is where discipline is forged. That is where self-respect is built. When you change how you see work, you change how you see yourself. You stop seeing effort as punishment and start seeing it as investment. You stop avoiding difficulty and start using it as training. You stop waiting for life to feel meaningful and start creating meaning through action. One day you will look back and realize that the moments you felt most lost were the moments you were closest to becoming someone new. Work was not what trapped you. It was what shaped you. It gave you direction when you had none. It gave you strength before you felt ready. It gave you proof that you could move forward even without certainty. You are not lost because you lack potential. You are lost because you are meant to build it. And work, when chosen with intention and done with honesty, is how that building begins. Feeling lost is not failure. It is awareness. It is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. We are taught to believe that having everything figured out is the goal, that certainty equals success, and that confusion means something has gone wrong. But in reality, feeling lost often appears when something inside you has matured beyond your current situation. It means the version of life you are living no longer fits the person you are becoming. That awareness is not weakness. It is growth trying to speak. When you feel lost, your mind is not asking you to quit or give up. It is asking you to evolve. It is signaling that the old direction, the old routine, or the old expectations no longer serve you. You have learned what you needed to learn from that phase, and now there is a quiet pressure to move forward. This pressure can feel uncomfortable, even frightening, because it removes the illusion of certainty. But that discomfort exists for a reason. It is the gap between who you were and who you are capable of becoming. Most people are afraid of this feeling, so they try to silence it. They stay busy, overworked, constantly distracted. They fill their days with noise, obligations, and endless scrolling just to avoid sitting alone with their thoughts. Busyness becomes a hiding place. If they are always doing something, they never have to ask themselves difficult questions. But avoiding the feeling of being lost does not make it disappear. It only delays the growth it is trying to trigger. Discomfort is not your enemy. It is a messenger. When life feels too small, too repetitive, or too empty, that unease is pointing toward change. It is asking you to examine what no longer aligns with your values, your curiosity, or your potential. Growth rarely announces itself with confidence. It often arrives as restlessness, boredom, or dissatisfaction. These are not signs that you are failing at life. They are signs that you are ready for more. Being lost means you are no longer asleep to your own life. It means you are questioning instead of blindly following. That questioning is the beginning of intentional living. Every meaningful change starts with awareness. Before you can choose a new direction, you must first realize that the old one is no longer right. That realization is powerful, even if it feels unsettling. Instead of judging yourself for feeling lost, listen to what it is trying to tell you. Ask what you have outgrown. Ask where you have been playing safe. Ask what kind of growth you have been postponing. You do not need immediate answers. You only need honesty. Awareness creates the space for transformation. Feeling lost is not the end of the road. It is the moment you realize there is more ahead than what you have been settling for. It is not a signal to escape your life, but an invitation to redesign it with intention. Work is not just a way to earn money. It is far more than a paycheck or a means to survive. It is one of the most powerful tools we have for shaping who we are, for building our identity, skill, and self-respect. When we see work purely as a necessity, as something to get through, it becomes exhausting. It feels like a weight we carry rather than an opportunity to grow. But when work is approached intentionally, when we see it as a way to develop ourselves and contribute meaningfully, it becomes energizing. It turns effort into growth and struggle into strength. Every time you engage in work, whether it is simple or complex, you are making choices about who you want to be. When you take responsibility, when you approach tasks with care and curiosity, you are building habits that form character. Skills are not just learned in classrooms or training programs. They are forged through the discipline of showing up, tackling challenges, and learning from mistakes. Work is the arena where we test our capabilities and expand them. Each completed task, each problem solved, adds layers to our confidence. Even small accomplishments remind us that we are capable of more than we sometimes believe. Meaningless work, on the other hand, is draining because it disconnects effort from purpose. When you do something repeatedly without understanding why, or without seeing its impact, you start to feel hollow. Your energy disappears, your motivation fades, and a sense of emptiness grows. That is why it is crucial to look beyond the paycheck or the title and ask whether your work is shaping you into someone you respect, whether it is teaching you skills, or whether it is pushing you to grow. Work that teaches, challenges, and contributes creates momentum in life. It transforms ordinary effort into lasting value. Intentional work also brings clarity in times of confusion. Life is messy, and it is easy to feel lost, uncertain, or directionless. Work that matters, work that aligns with your values, goals, and curiosity, provides structure. It gives you measurable progress. Every step forward, every task completed, every problem solved adds a sense of direction to your life. Confusion fades because action creates insight. You may not have all the answers, and that is okay. What matters is that each day you are building competence, resilience, and self-trust. Over time, these small victories compound, turning what once felt uncertain into a clear path forward. Work also strengthens self-respect. When you dedicate yourself to doing something well, when you commit to learning and improving, you are showing yourself that your time, effort, and abilities are valuable. That respect cannot be given to you by anyone else. It is earned internally. The more you engage in intentional work, the more you see yourself as capable, disciplined, and resilient. Work becomes a mirror reflecting your potential and your growth. Ultimately, work is not just about survival, it is about becoming. When approached with intention, it turns effort into skill, struggle into confidence, and uncertainty into clarity. The right work transforms not only what you do, but who you are, shaping a life that feels meaningful, purposeful, and real. Every task you approach with care becomes a building block in the foundation of the person you are becoming. Action is the key, because it generates information. When you take steps, you encounter real-world feedback. You learn what works, what doesn't, and what aligns with your values and interests. Every choice you make, every task you attempt, teaches you something new about yourself. Sometimes that lesson comes in the form of success, other times through failure. Both are equally valuable. Success shows you your strengths, while failure exposes gaps, areas where growth is possible, and perspectives you had never considered. The act of doing is what sharpens understanding. Without it, you remain trapped in theoretical possibilities, imagining what life could be without ever discovering what it actually is. Learning through experience is also what builds confidence. When you overthink and wait for clarity, fear often grows. You imagine worst-case scenarios, question your abilities, and convince yourself that hesitation is safer than risk. But clarity is a byproduct of repeated engagement. As you attempt, fail, adjust, and try again, patterns start to emerge. You begin to see what excites you, what drains you, and what aligns with the person you want to become. Purpose becomes visible not as a single grand revelation, but as the cumulative result of movement and effort. Each small step illuminates the next, and slowly the fog begins to lift. Failing is a crucial part of this process. Most people avoid failure, thinking it is a sign of weakness. In reality, failure is an essential teacher. It tells you what does not work, highlights gaps in knowledge or skill, and challenges your assumptions. When you act, you risk making mistakes, but each mistake is a lesson that brings you closer to understanding yourself and your path. Movement creates meaning precisely because it exposes you to these lessons. Standing still, waiting for the perfect conditions, leaves you stagnant. Motion, even imperfect motion, creates insight. Improvement is another result of action. You do not become stronger, wiser, or more capable by staying idle. Every choice, every effort, and every attempt to tackle something difficult adds to your growth. As you improve, clarity becomes a natural side effect. Your purpose begins to emerge because your experiences reveal what resonates with you and what does not. Action produces a cycle. You do, you learn, you adjust, you gain insight, and that insight informs your next action. This cycle is continuous, and the more you engage with it, the clearer your direction becomes. In essence, waiting for clarity is a trap. Purpose is not something you find by thinking harder. It is something you create by moving, learning, failing, and improving. Meaning is generated in motion. The path becomes visible under your feet as you walk it, not while you sit imagining it. Every step you take, no matter how small or uncertain, builds understanding and shapes your purpose. Life does not hand clarity to those who wait, it gives it to those who act. Movement creates meaning, and action is the bridge between confusion and direction. You do not need the perfect job or a lifelong plan to build a meaningful life. Society often pressures us to believe that success comes from finding that one ideal career, that everything in life must be perfectly mapped out, years in advance, and that if we don't have it all figured out, we are failing. But the truth is far simpler and far more freeing. What you need is work that challenges you, teaches you, and helps you grow into someone you respect. Work is not just about a title, a salary, or prestige. It is about what it does to your character, your skills, and your sense of self-worth. When work is approached with intention, it becomes more than a task. It becomes a tool. It becomes a way to turn confusion into clarity, frustration into resilience, and aimlessness into purpose. Doing work intentionally means showing up fully, engaging deeply, and asking yourself what you can learn from each task. It is about committing to the process, not obsessing over whether the outcome will look perfect on paper. When you take this approach, even small, ordinary tasks start to have value. They contribute to your growth, and they teach you discipline, patience, and persistence. These lessons are transferable across life. They are what prepare you for bigger challenges and opportunities in the future. Feeling lost is often a sign that the work you are doing is not aligned with your growth. It is a signal that you have more potential than what your current tasks allow you to explore. Instead of waiting for a perfect job to appear, start by finding work that stretches you in some way. Even if the tasks seem small or mundane, what matters is whether they are shaping you into someone you admire, someone capable, confident, and skilled. Growth does not wait for the perfect conditions. It happens in the work you do today. By focusing on development rather than perfection, you turn your work into a bridge from feeling lost to feeling strong. Intentional work also builds self-respect. When you show up consistently, put effort into learning, and push yourself to improve, you send a message to yourself that your time, energy, and abilities matter. You begin to trust your own capacity to handle challenges and create results. That internal trust is more valuable than any job title or paycheck because it becomes the foundation for future success. When you respect yourself, you are no longer dependent on external validation. You can pursue work and life with confidence, knowing that your worth comes from what you are building, not from what others think of you. Ultimately, you do not need everything figured out. You do not need a perfect job or a perfect plan. What you need is work that teaches, challenges, and strengthens you. Work done with intention transforms feeling lost into growth, confusion into understanding, and weakness into strength. Every task you approach with care and commitment is a step toward becoming the person you want to be. Over time, this intentional effort compounds. You begin to see progress not as a distant goal, but as the natural result of the work you do each day. The right work, approached intentionally, turns uncertainty into direction and transforms your life in ways a perfect job never could.